one woman or girl is killed every single day in this country. That is inexcusable. Mr. Speaker, we just heard the minister deliver a speech in this House praising her government's efforts to combat gender-based violence. And I cannot believe that the minister would have the audacity to deliver this speech after all the things this Prime Minister has done to harm women and make life more dangerous for women and girls. Liberals must make new ministers check in their shame when they get sworn into cabinet. The Prime Minister has deliberately implemented a criminals-first agenda, which has directly led to a dramatic increase in violence against women. Despite the desperate pleas from already marginalized voices of women, survivors, victims, and their families, he just doubles down. In his ideological pursuit of progressive catchphrases and clout chasing from international organizations in Strasbourg and Brussels, this Prime Minister has caused the meteoric rise of the epidemic that is gender-based violence through policies that place rapists and murderers above victims and survivors. It is no coincidence that before the Liberals took office in 2015, rates of police-reported family violence and intimate partner violence was on the decline. Under this government, it has been alarmingly higher rates. This is verified by this government's own data. Since its famous 2015 quip on the steps of Rideau Hall, where he touted that his would be a feminist government, the rate of female victimization for intimate partner violence has increased by 18.75%. Now, in 2024, Mr. Speaker, total sexual assaults have increased by 74%. Total sexual violations against children, 118%. Forcible confinement or kidnapping, up 10%. Indecent harassing communications, up 86%. And trafficking in persons, up 83%. In addition, Liberal Bill C-5 also repealed the previous Conservatives government ban on house arrest for the following offences. Section 144, prison breach. Section 264, criminal harassment. Section 271, sexual assault. And the list goes on. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal Prime Minister is a fake feminist. This government needs to own it, admit their failures, and let the law enforcement agencies enforce laws and put the scum of society behind bars. This government brought in legislation that repealed mandatory minimum sentences for gun-related offences and removed the Harper's government's ban on house arrests for rapists, kidnappers, and human traffickers, allowing them to be put back on the streets and re-terrorize and re-victimize the very people we are supposed to protect. The Prime Minister has not only been an architect of systemic coddling of violent criminals through his own legislation, he has instructed his caucus in both the Liberal and the NDP party to vote down common sense legislation like C-325, which would have reversed its own short-sighted decision to put literal rapists and traffickers behind a TV instead of behind bars. It's not just the Prime Minister's soft-on-crime approach that has hurt women. Canadian women are bearing the brunt of the Prime Minister's poor economic and fiscal decisions. Canadian families paid $700 more for groceries this year than they did last year. The carbon tax is driving up the cost of goods and services, disproportionately affecting women and children. 1 in 5 children are now living in poverty, Mr. Speaker, and 2 million visits to a food bank in a single month. Activism alone will not stop intimate partner violence and gender-based violence. We need strong leaders who will fix the broken bail systems, keep dangerous and violent offenders away from their victims, and work with the provinces to fix the backlogged justice system instead of blaming them for a system that federal government helped create. The refusal of the Prime Minister to take legitimate action against gender-based violence can charitably be interpreted in only 2 ways. Either the Prime Minister does not know how bad the situation is, or he does know and he doesn't care. Mr. Speaker, neither is acceptable and shows a complete dereliction of compassion and responsibility for our most vulnerable. For the Prime Minister to act like this, for the Minister to stand in the House and suggest otherwise, is nonsense and disrespectful to survivors and victims and their families. It was not like this before he was elected, and it will not be like this after he is gone. Canada is done with this woke, fake, feminist Prime Minister. Call an election.
Come on. Yay!